jàll ñu ko war a nekk réew nga commencé ko nekk ñaataay def boobu ak naa géré yokk waa
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar today. My name is Pradeep Nayak, and I am I'm from the University of Waterloo, also representing the Vulnerability to Viability Global Partnership in Building Strong Small-Scale Fisheries. I'm delighted to be hosting this webinar series. And really appreciative that you are joining from different parts of the world today. So what I will do is I will start with a few introductions, of course, introduction to the B2B Global Partnership. Following, I would also introduce our the thematic webinar series for which we have gathered here. And then I will give a brief introduction of our speaker today, and before we start to listen to the talk. There would be questions from all of you. Please make sure to write your questions into the chat box in YouTube, so we can read it to our speaker, and a discussion could take place. So just as an introduction, the Vulnerability to Viability Global Partnership is a transdisciplinary research, knowledge, and action network with over 100 partners and members from Africa, Asia, and Canada, and internationally. The goal of the global partnership is to support small-scale fisheries in their transition from vulnerability to viability. And the way we use and understand vulnerability and viability is not just in an economic sense, but also to represent the political, the cultural, the ecological aspects of human life, as if it matters, for vulnerability and viability situations. Our focus is fourfold. The first is to co-create and co-produce knowledge that is essential for the vulnerability to viability transition. Create a repository or a database of that information or co-produced knowledge that can be used by everyone engaged in the vulnerability to viability transition process, right from the community to the policy and everything in between. The third aspect of our work is building a multifaceted capacity, which is essential for V2V, and also synthesizing the co-produced knowledge and all of the action outcomes in ways that can inform the governance policy and action work pertaining to vulnerability to viability in small-scale fisheries. The V2V Global Partnership aims to identify the diverse factors and conditions contributing to the vulnerability of small-scale fisheries and engage in collaborative ways with small-scale fisher communities and other key NGO, government, and university partners to enhance SSF or small-scale fisheries viability. We are conducting transdisciplinary and interdisciplinary community-engaged research in 6 countries in Asia. That includes Bangladesh, India, Indonesia, Japan, Malaysia, Thailand, and 6 countries in Africa. That includes Ghana, Malawi, Nigeria, Senegal, South Africa, and Tanzania. In doing this work, the V2V Global Partnership brings people and organizations together across political, physical, cultural, and disciplinary boundaries through a shared interest in addressing global change impacts on small-scale fisheries. The V2V thematic webinar series, for which we all have gathered here virtually today, is an initiative of the V2V Global Partnership to facilitate and generate high-level discussions on vulnerability and viability themes and topics, within the context of small-scale fisheries. The goal is to feature academics, government representatives, practitioners, and members of the civil society who have made significant contributions to the theoretical, practical, and policy aspects of small-scale fisheries, both locally and regionally, but also globally. The V2B thematic webinar series takes place on the last Friday of every month, and it will continue to be so during the year 2024. So you are invited to join us every month, for these talks on the last Friday. The series is available internationally through the live streaming on YouTube. Details that you can find on these monthly webinars, including speakers, topics, and titles, and links to webinar platforms on our website, which is www.v2pglobalpartnership.org. Today's webinar is the fourth in the series of V2B thematic webinars planned for the year 2024 and the 40th since January 2021 when we started this series. And it is my privilege to introduce Dr. Aliou Sall as our distinguished speaker today. And if I may request Aliou to be on video, we lost your video actually. So Aliou, if you can be on video, that would be great. Dr. Aliou Sall is a researcher specializing in development studies in the field of studies in the field of fisheries and small-scale fisheries. He is the director of the NGO CREDETIP in Senegal, which works mainly with small-scale fisher communities. Dr. Sall also serves as the vice president of Mundus, a non-profit organization that provides scientific and relevant indigenous knowledge and encourages artistic expressions about the sea in order to promote its restoration, conservation, and sustainable use. He has been conducting research in social anthropology of artisanal fisheries for over 25 years now. During this time, he has been working with trade unions and social movements of fishers in Senegal and other countries in West Africa, such as Gambia, Guinea Bissau, Guinea Conakry, Benin, Togo, and Ghana. Through his collaborations with the social movements, he provides necessary support for those groups to engage in negotiations with the policymakers and in the entire policy process. Dr. Sall has also worked as a consultant on a number of national regional SSF projects on issues related to socio-anthropology of artisanal fisheries. From January 2020 to June 2020, he was recruited as a consultant by the Mendero Foundation to assess fisheries management and governance in the following countries. That includes Senegal, Gambia, Guinea Bissau, and a host of other countries in the region. Dr. Aliou Sall is a co-investigator and with the B2B Global Partnership, and currently one of the country coordinators for Senegal. It is my honor to invite Dr. Aliou Sall to deliver today's B2B thematic webinar series talk for 2024. Which is titled as Ambivalent Role of Market and Technology in the Transitions from Vulnerability to Viability Nexus in Senegal SSF, Small Scale Fisheries. I see that Dr. Sall has, we have lost him. I'm sorry about that, but we're trying to get him to rejoin again. Maybe there is an internet problem or something. So please bear with us. And we're trying to get him back on the screen as soon as possible. Please bear with us. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your patience. And there was a little bit of connectivity problem, so we lost our speaker briefly, but he's back. So Aliou, I have completed the introductions, and thank you very much for joining us from Senegal today. And the floor is yours. Please take it away. And if Maha can share the screen, please. Thank you very much for your patience. And there was a little bit of connectivity problem, so we lost our speaker. Aliou, you can start, please.
Okay. Good morning. Did you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
So thanks a lot for participating. As explained on through the program, the agenda, my talk will be on two topics. One will be on the dynamics of between vulnerability and viability, and the other one, just to summarize, will be on transition, the characterization of transition through, meaning this pathway, through which the fishes are navigating from vulnerability to viability. Next, please, Maha. Okay, but as Pratik mentioned, it's very important to, as we are from multiple discipline, and we are promoting, TD, meaning transdisciplinary approach. It's very important that anytime we have occasions, opportunity, just to share our perspective, on this issue of V2V, based on our background, our experiences. So that's why I insist in making this reminder, this clarification, saying that for social scientists like me, vulnerability is an integral part of small-scale fisheries. So it's not something new, because the way we used to talk about V2V may lead some to think that it's a new happening, a new process. Vulnerability is one of the intrinsic to small-scale fisheries, and that is in connection with the nature of fisheries, correlation of risk, uncertain income, etc. Of course, in other sectors like agriculture, we have many risks, but small-scale fisheries has some particularity, and the other illustration of this intrinsic characteristic of the fact that vulnerability is intrinsic to small-scale fisheries is related to the policy. Small-scale fisheries have been for all marginalized. So it's a systemic marginalization. These two combined lead to have, the understanding that fishing is a vulnerable activity. Fishers are exposed, since to vulnerability. And I'm saying that I think it's a very important, as Pratik mentioned, that, integrating the cultural dimension, is very important, because it impacts a lot on the way fishers do their best in order to maintain themselves in the sector by transiting, from V to V and from V to V, meaning, because it's about, iterative movement. Because sometimes if you don't have the same understanding of how important it is to integrate the cultural dimension, so we only see in the tactics and strategy developed by fishers, some non-eco-friendly, behavioring. Of course, if you refer to drift nets and all, some non eco-friendly gears that are generalized in the fisheries, you may question: are these fishers aware about what they're doing? The reason behind is that there is some stress consisting in maintaining this maritime culture. So culture is very important. Identity is very important. So when we judge, when we appreciate, we have to consider this because it's So next, please. The actor involved, it's very important to talk about the actor involved because it's in connection with what will be said later. But to help you manage your expectation, I would say is that I don't, I have problems with figures. Throughout all the works, I had to do this past year or reflection or debate. I never stopped, mentioning, the factors that, data of how, data we use are out of date. I can't rely on data, because all these data we have here are, published since, at least, 10 years or something like that. It's like just a food you just need put in the micro oven in order just to heat it, But I told myself it might at least, give, some figure about, what's happening, a local portrait of small-scale fishing in Senegal. So we have around, 60,000 permanent workers in fisheries, and among whom you have temporary workers, and associate, caregivers. They're all, those who are involved in harvesting are all men. Because unlike some in inland fisheries, fishers are men, except it, in some region like northern region, in the Senegal River or in Casamance, where women, or island of Salom, where women are fishers, and they are more involved in shell collecting, these kind of things. Processing is the second sector, where you have around 80,000 people engaged, around 18, family workers, 1.5 associate, and half, 0.5 apprentices. And it will be important to say that this is, the sectors that are under control of women. Large majority of are women, because this is traditionally in the hands of women. Marketing, that means fresh fish marketing and processed fish marketing, is a sector where around 17,000 have employees, of whom you have around 56 are permanent, 20 owners, around 10 seasonal employer, and in Senegal, it's I get asked this point when we talk about vulnerability. It's very important to take in mind, how fish is important for food security, because it's rooted in our traditional culinary. And we are in a country where the per capita consumption, for example, is the highest, I think, in all West African, West region. Please, Maha, next. Hello. Okay. As we talk about, as the topic is about, how fishers succeed in navigating from V to V and to V, from one vulnerability to viability, back to viability to vulnerability. But it's a process that evolves in terms of cascade, meaning, it's a non-stop, process. It's a very dynamic. It's very important just to here. It's the purpose and the main the main techniques, the main technology used, and among these means the main technology used by fishers to for transition, between V to V and that. And I just use a couple of communities, Genline and Gillnets, Line, Gillnets, and Persainers, are the main use Gillnets, fishing gears. As you see, there are demersal, hook and line, and gillnets, target demersal. It's a small detail. The only difference is that as hook and line, fish caught with hook and line used to be more fresh and it's fresh consumption. Gillnet, so, production or landings used to be destinated to and will make, fermentation and salted and brine, so and so on. So you have this demersal and Persainers, I say circling nets is that is a technique introduced with the support of the FAO from the early, I think, the 70s. It used in this place for bluefish. Bluefish is an emblematic, species in this region. When I say Gendar is encompassed in the Langue de Barbarie. That is one of our main case, our two case studies in Senegal. So in addition to bluefish, you have coastal small pelagics, in particular, mainly Sardinella aurita, horse mackerel. So the demersal are designated to local, I mean, more at community level, national, international markets. Whereas, for example, coastal small pelagics used to be for national markets, and in particular for processing, because it's important to remind that pelagics represent 80% of our total production, and this is the species on which all these women you are engaged in fisheries lean on, depend on. BS mean bluefish. So Kayar is the second location where, if you see, it is almost there are some variation, but hook and line dominate. It is all the same species for demersal and even for how we say for pelagic, coastal pelagic, small pelagics. Next, please, Maha. And is another location with almost the same techniques and the same targets, species. So as for the first example, demersal are for three types of markets: local, national, international. Um, uh, Now, what there is the main that don't worry about the repetition, because all these communities that have been selected are those where we can identify, some interesting example illustration, of this navigation between between V to V, and we are using both technology and market to ensure this, transitions, in plural, because there are many form of transition, as we talked about in Accra. It's about the characterization of transition. We'll talk about later, below. Europe is another place where the same, situation, it exists. So we proceed, please, Maha. Jawal is, these locations are very far one from another. Something I apologize for that, to mention before, is that, all the information, besides what the data coming from the talking about, actors involved, that comes from the National, Agency of Statistics of Demography. All this information comes from, the works, I've been doing on the field while elaborating or writing the situational analysis. So here in Showal you have, so before I worked partly in Langue de Barbarie as case studies, but I complete based on what I have as information. I complete by making, some interview by telephone and, confirming or aggregating, some information I have. Because, for example, concerning transition, also, I use some works I did in the past with the Sub-Regional Fisheries Commission, for example, regarding sharks, migration, this kind of thing. So it's a combination of information coming from the work I did, with V2V, and the work I did, in the frame of consultation with Sub-Regional Fishery Committee mainly. So, so these are for the first, location. Except factor you have now in Shawar, it's a location well known for, crustacean, lobsters, kind of thing, and cephalopods. Because this is a region very important. Shawar is in the region called Petite Côte, close to Bour. So go, please, next. Okay. Now, through what have been said concerning techniques, and target species, I insisted on international market because I think it's a very important because the purpose here is the purpose is to explain the ambivalent role of technology, for transition, in plural, between V and V. I'm not talking about V to V, between V and V, because it's a kind of transhumance, like, it's an iterative movement. So that's why I think it's very important just to mention the fact that markets and fishing effort increasing, just to mention this interrelation, the connection between market, fishing effort increasing, on one hand, and the vulnerability. And through this process, just I use some example, but that concern both, industrial fisheries and small-scale fisheries. For example, increasing of number of fisheries, this is amazing, what's happening in Senegal, because for many reasons, because and it starts since the 17th, with a drought. I know, this very hard condition in rural, area, no rain and all. So the first wave of young people, or even adults from the rural area going to the coast have been identified, from the 17th. So you had some who came and just waiting for a better, condition in order to go back. But most of them just, settled definitively in fisheries. Others are become, owners, and they're involved both in 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 harvesting and on one hand, and in the others active like marketing, fishmongers, laborers, workers in processing, how we say, areas and so on. And this fact, just very briefly, have been, of course, drought, have was the main driver. You have how you say, some factors that facilitate that, because this coincide with the same time, the same period when, if with help, support, or if you're an other partner, circuits have been introduced in small-scale fishery. And unlike traditional, for example, fishing gear technique and all, circling nets require more, physical, muscular force, meaning it must be strong, because you have to pull nets. So the net is very big. So the nature of this technology is a bigger boats, uh, more horsepower, and require more young people who are, strong. So this was a very favorable receptacle to host these young people. Second is what was that we noticed that really, contribute to this, to vulnerability, is the in terms of fishing effort, is the evolving from 15, 12, and even max, horsepower up to the late 19th, that really contributes to fishing effort in small, how we say, small-scale fisheries. In addition to that, we have to add the socio-political dimension of small-scale fisheries, because with the subsidies, during these last 2 years, the government, meaning the politician, those who are rulers in this country, in order just to neutralize, these youths who were very hungry concerning the crisis in fisheries, provided subsidies in order to help them, access to more powerful, motors. They are now in Senegal since 2 years and 3, we have 60 horsepower, 60, 65, and even 70. You have the overcapacity in industrial fisheries. Fishery license have been allocated since, decades from 1790 and 1790 in the frame of the Convention of Lomé. So have before it was in so this led us of the collapse of first the demersal fish. It was by decades, and then the cephalopod, and now from late 19th, the government signed, a very, it was a shame, a fishing agreement on pelagics, late end of 19th. This is about, the other driver is poor governance, lack of transparency, corruption, official here. And then, that means, even the NCS, done, properly. And in addition to that, you have the crisis of authority, because that leads to a really some problem for enforcement. And you have some implementation gap, because you have a lot of, tools that can't be implemented on the ground because, due to this, socio-political situation. As we have already, okay, but it's okay. Then it's at home. Okay. Thanks a lot. But in addition to that, even if I think it's very important to have to say some word about these drivers that are meaningful for as we are fisheries dominated by pelagics, based on some, I think one of the worldwide, more famous reference we have on this, topic of climate change, and small coastal small pelagic next is the ones made by Curie, he's a French, scientist, demonstrated that, these species are the most vulnerable to climate change and seasonal variation. And the geopolitics also have really changed it and have impacted a lot on the fisheries governance in Senegal. China is in the scene. He becomes very powerful. He's he's now playing a role that maybe our former we say the European country who formerly colonized West Africa has gradually withdrawn, and China is here, and I think it's really it's they are now making too much damage to the fisheries without respect to anything, catching how you say nails, no respect to fishing zone, even the zone reserved to small fisheries. And they are, the fish meat industry also is very bad for us, it has some very bad, implications. And I think this, this lead me to say that, uh, uh, vulnerability is an integral part. It must be considered as an integral part, of small-scale fisheries, based on what I explained earlier. Now, what happened, since this from the 18th, in addition to poor governance, climate change, and all, has led to a transition from vulnerability to deep crisis from the late, 18th. With the collapse of demersal and pelagic stocks. So that means, vulnerability has to be, distinguished from crisis, the ongoing deep crisis. Please, Maha. So now I use here some qualitative indicators, to just, share a couple of, a couple of forms of expression, of this crisis. You have lower costs for the lower catches for unit effort, lower income, longer fishing trips, stress. All these, problem have some are interconnected. The increasing of transaction costs, the increasing of transaction costs, meaning, more time at sea, and conflict, between fishers. The MP, for example, there are many conflicts. To understand, I think it's just a couple of months ago, not more than, maybe, I don't know. If our is participating, she can correct me. There was a very violent conflict, with even some people in the northern part between Caire and all. It's happening everywhere. But this is, this comes from the rarefaction of resources. There are some the other qualitative indicator I like sometimes to use is the impact on eating habits. The decrease in quality and quantity of quality of fish consumed. In fishing community. Sardinella also goes from substitute on bands to peak forward as a real star bowler, because myself, if I consider a community like this, it's more than 20 years that I'm eating the same family, the same place. But when I see, how this have evolved, in a community like Gambia in Langue de Barbarie, where offering a good fish and rice that is our national dish plate, offering it in Saint-Louis is a big honor for people from there. Even here in Senegal, there is the ladle, the rice and fish of Saint-Louis, the rice and fish of Gambia. So when these people now have no choice and are using sardinella, sardinella is amazing because again, 15 years, I don't know. I was even depressed the first time I saw that. Anyway, so next. Now talking about we come to the so we have the vulnerability that is part of some fisheries. We have a process that lead that in a deep crisis. At the same time, fishers are always these are about pathway used by fishers to move from when you are in a crisis, when you are in vulnerability, how to move to viability. So the most outstanding and interesting strategy and tactics I identify was from the 19th in terms of techniques and tradition. The first one is talked about the complex relation between the small-scale fisheries and industrial fisheries. It's very, very interesting because fishers from a couple of locations, I can give some example, explore, try to value the blur, the blur between industrial fishery and small-scale fishery. When I say blurred, because based on my experience, for some issues, for some question, I have problem just to trace a line between the two. Even if I know very well, I'm concerned about the bad practice of from industry fisheries and how they harm fishing communities, condition of living and all. But thanks to their local innate their knowledge, they succeed in seizing some opportunity, provided by the industrial fisheries. One example is based the master they have on hook and line, some contract, signed with some broad, Spanish long liner coasting along the Atlantic coast, they're specialized in shark and koi fan steak. I did a work for the Subregional Fisheries Commission on the migration of various actors involved in migration at level of ECOWAS region. That means fishers. I don't know. It's a value chain, I would say, as economists like to say. So these are some interesting information that confirm the fact that the relations are very complex. So here the transhumance, this transhumance through V to V is ensure is made through a transhumance between small-scale fisheries, to fisheries and back. Next, please. Après 10 minutes, oh, another example, there are many, is that the first one I gave concern fishers from where we move Joal. We have some few from the Abdialau, Gero, many locations. So what we call Petit Coast, northern coast and southern coast. Another example is concern the contact between Korean and Portuguese, mother vessels of demersal fishing that, that's, embark on the vessels, 30 canoes, and in every canoe you have 3 or 4, up to 5, but not more 5 on the bottom on the pirogue. So they go for 1 month, fishing trip, stay. When the boat arrives in fishing ground, it gets anchor, and the fishers, work and how we say land, give to the boat what they collect for 1 month, and after 1 month, the boat, they never land in our harbor. They go to Europe or whatever. I don't know. Very different to trust their the destination. Cornelia has been worked in the past with on this. I don't know whether she can say more about that, but this I know because I'm working with fishers in Saint-Louis. You have been involved in this practice since decades. So next, please. And the other one is with the first concerned fishers who comes traditionally from family where hook and line, the two first examples, where hook and line are rooted traditional, practices. This one concerned fishers work who have both specialization, knows very well hook and lines, but it's about fishers, mainly from Kaya and from the island of South. These are the Nyominka ethnic group. And they work in tuna sailors. And once I was in Mauritius, I was really, I was in the plane and we stopped over in Seychelles, and then some fishers, just came from that long fishing trip, 6 months, joined me in the plane. I know them very well. Fishers, don't get fishers. I used to meet in Cairo in this, to take tea with them, waiting for them landing, when I know the family, I know the type of pirogue, they have decoration of the pirogue and all. So this is, some interesting example of pathways from V to V that need to be maybe more deeper. Next, please. So the rank now, this is what is important. This is just to confirm that this transition is to come back and to sustain through what is said here. There are two things to keep in mind. Very attached to their tradition, to the smoked fisheries as identity marker. And this is something very important. It's the main idea to maintain. The second one is that they are intelligent and clever enough to find out ways, whatever is the cost, in order to ensure the sustainability, the viability of fishery, understood and on a, I would say, sociocultural sense. This is very important, because when you have fishers who go to industrial fishing just to capitalize, to have funds, to maintain and to reduce there is some culture turning around. Even the authority of the chief, of the family is turning around the pirogue. When you lose the pirogue, you lose the authority, you lose your status. It's even for communities a shame to lose the ownership. That's why crisis is a source of stress and very difficult to afford. Next, please, Maha. So in addition to this, transition between industrial and small-scale fisheries. Internal small-scale fisheries, you have also some will to reduce transaction costs by maintaining fishing efforts. And when I talk about transaction costs, it's more referring to the cost of fishing equipment. For example, in Persenas, for example, they used to utilize two canoes since more than 10 years or even 15 years. Because one canoe, Persenas used to have two canoes, one for the fishers, transport the fishers, and one for the fish whenever they have fish to bring fish here. So it's a kind of shuttle, once you have fish, one pirogue has to go to the landing harbor and come back and all and all. But given the cost of the rarefaction of wood, the cost of equipment, and this is from two canoe to one. The one is omitted. I apologize. There is introduction on generalization of drift net. Drift net is very bad. We all know that. But it's light. It's easy to deploy, enabling multiple fishing operations. Unlike, for example, nets they traditionally use in Persenas. Very heavy, very and sometimes for those in a such crisis, there are sometimes fishers who don't have all the equipment. They can just have nets and borrow just a motor and go ahead. So next, please. We have to next. Okay, now this is the example about market as pathway to transition. The three main things here from the 19, the Central Africa and ECOWAS market expressed a high demand that on salted smoke, catfish, karang, etc. You have also the Ghana market, which is a market known as specialized on shark in the region from the 19th, Mundus, Kaya, Casamance. High demand from China, also in Korea, for what we call ceinture. Ceinture is a belt fish, So that have led to a reconvention of fishers of their fishing effort on this that represent opportunity provided by this market. Next, please. You have new opportunity also given by market. In begin, for example, new toner market with a high concentration of fishers on this potential. When I say new opportunity, new market, it's because these are not, how you say, species who are neither targeted by fishers. You are neither no part of our culinary tradition, but for time being, they are targeted by fishers and are part of our daily consumption, fish consumption. Next, please. Extraordinaire.
Looks like there are no more slides, Aliou. Aliou, are you there? Looks like, your screen has frozen. Looks like we have lost our speaker again. Hoping that we'll get him back on screen in a few seconds or minutes. If you have any questions, please do write them in the text box on YouTube, so we can read it out to him. In the event that we are not able to get him back because of connectivity issues, we will make sure that to get some answers from Aliou to your questions and post them on YouTube for you again. But I think, the discussion in the presentation made by Aliou alerts us to the dual role of, technology and market in how transitions from vulnerability to viability might take place. In one part of the talk, he was speaking to the point where market and technology was playing the role of drivers, that were causing, numerous harm to the fisheries sector. But also in another part of the talk, he was speaking to the possibilities of how market and technology can play a somewhat positive or enabling role, where the communities in small-scale fisheries can respond to um, adversities or vulnerabilities, and thereby make little but steps, concrete steps towards viability. So this is very interesting, and I think we're getting him back again. So we'll see how the connectivity works, and if we can have some discussion, that would be great. So welcome back, Aliou. I see that you are joining, which is great. Are you there, Aliou? Hello, Aliou, are you there? Can you hear us? Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, I know, and I was just talking to our audience, in terms of saying sorry for the connectivity problem that we are having to have you on the screen, but I'm glad that you are back. I just made a comment about your talk where you spoke about the dual role of technology and market. On one hand, you talked about how market and technology has the ability to cause problems for the fisheries sector, and how vulnerabilities in Senegal fisheries sector has taken place is partly due to the adverse role played by market and technology. But in other part of the talk, you also talked about how market and technology can uh, act as facilitators for moving towards viability as well. So it's an interesting complex where the same drivers can play the role in both ways, both negatively and positively. So that's what I was talking to our audience. But we have some questions that are there, so I'll read the question. Please try to answer and discuss some of those answers. There is one question which talks about what are the main what may be the possible implications of this case study that you have presented in other subtropical countries, for example, Bangladesh. Please feel free to share your views. So what you are talking about in the context of Senegal, how do you see that applies or have implications for other countries, subtropical countries? And the example in case here is Bangladesh. I think the question is uh, from Bangladesh, someone from Bangladesh.
Uh, if I understand, is it this context? It's more related to the how you say my approach maybe if you want to ask for, because the
Yes.
context is a context is a the context is made by, you know, Senegal as his own, you know, political system, his own, you know, I don't what to apply. I don't know what
Yeah, I mean,
when the question refer to apply, what to apply.
the question
I don't
is,
understand the question really.
the case study that you just presented, which focuses on Senegal, how it is relevant or not to other places, and places like Bangladesh or
So
India or other
I am
places.
I I am sure that, you know, this so that's why I'm talking about approach or vision, you know, the my way of, you know, it's kind of sensitivity. I think, you know, this situation exists in a, you know, this can be applied in every country where you have the cohabitation between you know, where you have when you have market, international, or you have market, even local, regional, or international, where you have market and so technology, because you can't talk about market, you can't talk about market because technology choice are, you know, depend on market.
Yeah,
Even
yeah,
some fishing chain depend on market. You have many fishers who say, I'm a traditional, you know, how do you say, lobster fishers, or I'm traditional, you know, octopus fishers. We don't have traditional octopus fishers. They are made, you know, produced by the market.
yes. So in other words, it looks like your screen is frozen again, and I'm really sorry about
Can
that.
be applied at, you know, in any case, I'm sure.
Yes, yeah. And market and technology are prevalent in all fisheries contexts, in varying ways. So the influence
Yeah,
that you are talking about in
yeah.
Senegal could be seen in other places. So we'll move on to other questions. So the next one is from Mundus Maris. I think Cornelia is on the other side. So how do fisher organizations influence the threats and the opportunities in the case study that you talked about? What is the response of the fisher organizations and groups to these challenges?
Huh. I understand that this comes from Cornelia, but she's always concerned by the, you know, by the fact that fishers haven't yet recovered all the powers they have for struggling, for claiming more rights, for organizing, you know, for and for. Uh, but my main response about that is that, you know, based on my experience, that they might have some reason, objective reason. Fishers are not interested in involving themselves in marketing. They are not. There are many attempts, you know, in order. You have some people who came with some moral, you know, point of view, philosophical, you know, analysis, moral analysis. Okay, they are exploited by fishmongers. They are, you know, market is they should have more money from the fish market. But still, we have NGO who try to organize fishers in order to do that. But any of the initiative in ended. And you know, based on, you know, my proximity with these people, I understand that they are interested still, and this is some reality in the fisheries. Once they land, they want to forget, you know, what is, you know, what is fish. Fish has to be, you know. Anyway, see, I don't know whether I don't understand. It's a provocation because Cornelia knows very well that there are some, you know, some. She's very interested in uh, in uh, in involving fishers, but it's a complicated.
Yeah, yeah. And maybe one aspect of that question is, when you talked about the social implications in terms of, various things, livelihoods and, people's, engagements in the fisheries sector and other. So how do people respond? not only individually, but also as a group, or, you work a lot with social movements in Senegal and West Africa. So what has been some of the responses is part of this question. But I'll move on to another question from Melissa Marska in the University of Ottawa in Canada. And Melissa writes for you that this was a wonderful, in-depth talk. Thanks. I really appreciate the longitudinal analysis. I would be curious if you have more information on the canoe that are brought out to sea on the large boats. You talked about the Portuguese and the Korean mother boats bringing up to 30 vessels on them. So if you can speak to that a little bit more in detail, that is what Melissa is asking.
Okay. I think the first question related to some preoccupation I have since. This is social mobilization in order to really improve, and even improve and playing a role of sentinel, in order to, to monitor what's happening, the kind of counterpower. I feel very preoccupied by this, because I noticed that fishers are not, social mobilization is not ensured as it should be. It should be in our country, because we are in a country where, I don't want to repeat myself, the fish and rice is our national play. It's now considered as a human heritage by UNESCO. There is any Senegalese who can stop fishing, eating fish for 2 days. So I think, the first, they are not, there is not the required social mobilization. It has to be, but to be effective, I think we must question, a certain number of things. Representation, who represent whom? It's the problem, How do they defend fish workers? The strategy used, defending fish workers' right can't, be limited to, fora, seminar, and all. In West Africa, I was always prepared based on what I, have as in India, like in Kerala, for example. I told myself, you don't have, manifestation, you don't have this kind of thing. The struggle is limited to, advocacy, but throughout papers and seminars. It has to be to take some form. Another thing I think to ensure social mobilization in how to mobilize, the population, because the social mobilization, how we say, the collaboration of the population, So some must think, beyond, fishing communities, and have collaboration with unions, Farmers, for example, are very strong, I think, fishers must collaborate with farmers and sensitize the population about what's happening. Senegalese eat fish, but don't know what's happening. When we're talking about Senegalese people, don't know it. They don't know it, maybe 5% of the population. So if they lean on those who are representing them, I don't know that, they will have any gaining, So for the second sector, very briefly, because I think we finished, Today I tried to be very polite and disciplined, So I can send my email, or I don't know, and if you have some, Melissa, your name, and I can to be more clear or about your expectation, and I can share what I have in hands, but there are some works on that.
Can you also briefly talk about the mother vessels bringing canoes on them? The question from Melissa.
Okay, no, I saw that she was the mother vessels used to come to Saint is the northern part where we have the Langue of Barbarie. From Korea, from Portugal. The first was South Korean and Portugal together. But during the COVID, they have many loss. There are people who died and all. They are frightened, by what they have, you know, they have been confronting, here in Senegal during the COVID, and even for Ebola, because they were navigating between Senegal and central, Africa, Gabon, Congo, and all. And since 3 years, they stopped. They don't come here in Dakar, but some are dislocated to the other. So if you want to talk about the type of contract, there was it was slavery. It was really slavery because the fish was bought until 5 years ago or 4 years, because I don't follow this issue. You know, uh, was bought on board 300 CFA, meaning 300, c'est 50 cents, 50 euro cents, 50 euro cents, half a euro a kilogram. And when I talk about kilogram of fish, it's not fish, really noble fish, big grouper, kind of sea bream, because other fish used to be thrown. So they go for 1 month, sign contract. And I explained her that it's a 30 pirogue, it's a small pirogue, it's not like this big pirogue you see, in which you have, on board you have 3 up to 5 fishers. When they go to the ground fishing ground, they anchor the big boat, and the fishers are just, fishing around, They went early morning. It's like the Doris in Canada. And at the end, when they are fished, they join the boat. So the boat owner, takes the fish, freeze it. Next day, they go to fish, they come back. It's a collector, it's like a collector. A collector boat, or collecting, mass boat. They stop there. But they used to be old boat, that used to be, they can't even have any certification in the northern country. Modified a little bit, just, so the working conditions were very bad, And some of them say that they got some injection, in order to be more strong, Fishers tells me. Yes. There are some works on that. I think I know the former director of the Senegal, of the fishery in Senegal, jointly with Cornelia, they had some works, I have some reflections, some meeting, and they have some written. I think, she can have my mail. I think she has my mail, no? No problem, I can share.
Yeah, we'll make sure that your email is available for continuing this discussion. But these stories are very impactful. I was going to ask what has been some of the responses, actually following up on the previous question. What has been some of the responses to this kind of unacceptable practices in the fishing sector itself? But I have to bring it to an end, because of the time. But this kind of discussions do continue into the future. We'll make sure that your contact is available to people who are interested in continuing the discussion. And I'm sure, you would be able to respond to them and engage further. But thank you very much, for this talk today, and generating yet another, whole set of discussions on this notion of vulnerability to viability transitions. Not only the case study, from Senegal, but as we had a question from Bangladesh, these cases have, long-term and, large implications for, small-scale fisheries and fisheries in general in other parts of the world. So we learn from different contexts, So in that way, I think, your talk was very impactful and very meaningful, so it can contribute to the discussions in fisheries sector in other contexts itself. So as I always say, we'll continue this discussion, through this forum and beyond this forum. You are all welcome to join us for the next webinar in May, on the last Friday of May. We'll have more information on that very soon. But thank you to everyone that joined and asked these wonderful questions. and keeping the small scale fisheries and fisheries related discussions and debates alive.
Okay.
So thank you very much, Aliou.
Non problème. Bye bye, ciao. Thanks to Maha and for facilitating the meeting. Thanks, Maha. Bye.
Bye bye.
Allez.